Hello students, today will be discuss about classism of Jane Austen. जैन ऑस्टन ने एक नॉवेल लिखा है प्राइड एंड प्रेजुडिस। ओके, आज हम जैन ऑस्टन के क्लासिज्म के बारे में बात करेंगे। जैन ऑस्टन इज क्लासिकल इन मोर देन वन सेंस। Her style is classical in its simplicity, in sureness of touch, and in delicacy of its spirit. Her attitude and approach to life, her classical vibe, temperament and training, she belonged to her austere and so date 18th century. She shared with classical poets and prose writers the qualities of art and satire in an age which is visionary in finance, fanciful, austere and mystic. David Cashel speaks of Jane Austen as the last exquisite blossom of the 18th century. Bradley speaks of her moralizing tendency and sees her work closely related to Dr. Johnson. She is essentially classical in spirit as well as from, though he was born in the age of Wordsworth and Scott. First है her literary affinities. The environment she grew up in and the atmosphere of her family could not have encouraged any romantic trait. The reading of the Austen family included not only the classics of the 18th century fiction but such novelists as Fanny Burney and Maria Edgeworth also. The Austens read and enjoyed, though they laughed at the Mrs. Radcliffe and other exploits of terror and sentimentalism from all the novelists that she read, and the list includes Walter Scott also, at least to avoid something from all great masters of the 18th century. Dr. Johnson, Grave, Cowper, she learned much, but it must be remembered that she learned infinitely more by her own practice and by pursuing her own gut and inclination. Next, her attitude to romanticism. The sea is imperfect obedience to her taste and temperament and never distracts as by effusive descriptions as we find in Scott or Hardy, furnishes no inventory of her heroine charms or dresses hardly, keeps any record or details of travels and makes explosion immortally ridiculous in the person of Mr. Elton. It was her deliberate avoidance of this material that provoked the critical remarks of Charlotte Brontë, another woman novelist of the mid-19th century who had hardly to share anything with Jane Austen. Next, prized reason rather than emotions. She despises gush of emotions and lays stress on reason. She distrusts sensibility and worships common sense. In almost all her novels, she denounces spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. She believes in emotions recollected in tranquility. She ridicules her heroines, who believe in the first impression of their heart uncorrected by reason, observation and experience. She ridicules all those heroines who take pride in unbridled emotions. Next, no love nature. Unlike the romantics, she is indifferent to nature. The rocks and streams, the forest and castles, which we find in the pages of Scott and Wordsworth, and conspicuous by their absence in her novels. In Mansfield Park, Fanny exclaims, "How beautiful, how welcome, how wonderful the evergreen!" But such lapses are rare, though she was very fond of the country. Next, no treatment of simple life. She does not write of simple primitive souls. She cannot write of poor men like teach gatherers, stripped of conventions and artificiality. She can never express such romantic sentiments, and love may be found in hearts where poor men live. She does not draw her characters from humble and low life. She has no sympathy with them. Her characters come from upper middle class society. She knows nothing of the romantic idea that civilization is the fall of man from some paradoxical state of nature. It is civilization which she prizes, her touchstone by which she the good from the bad are taste and sense aspects of the civilized world. She has sympathy with the primitive of Rousseau. She has, again, unlike the romantics, no love for children. She knows nothing of mighty prophet, seer blessed age, and of trailing of clouds glory. Next, a moralist. Though she is pure artist and does not moralize consciously, yet she is moralist. C.S. Lewis, he said that she has used the abstract noun of the classical English moralist unblushingly and uncompromisingly. Some of them are good sense, contentment, some duty neglected, some failing indulgence, impropriety, ignorance, region, and indelicacy. These are the concepts by which they grasp the world. In her moralist like Johnson, she did not make it her business to teach. She was a critical observer of life. Next, her conceptions of class character is classical. Thus, in spirit and temper, Jane Austen is classical. She is not only romantic but also sometimes anti-romantic. G.H. Herford has pointed out that she is classical in her attitude to characterization. She eschews the mystery of hoplites as much as the stoveliness of blood outlines. She loves intricacy so that she may delineate with the cleanness of a mosaic. She never suggests a soul of goodness. In her evil things, there is no reverse side to Lady Catherine, but she does not show talent affinities. Next, Feminine Augustine. Thus, her tastes, grounded as they were upon Richardson, the essayist Cowper, and her dear Dr. Johnson, were so much of the 18th century that her mind has been called feminine Augustine. In the greatness, the delicacy, and subtlety of her touch, the feline irony and malice behind all the valor, the womanly genius of a great writer can surely be detected. Indeed, her resemblances with her Dr. Johnson are apparent and have often been painted out. She hears with him her distrust in any intelligence or in emotions, her penetrative honesty in observing human nature in by her wit and also her endeavors at a full and heightened, though shamed style. Next, last detachment. Her classism is further characterization by detachment and objectively which are most Shakespearean in their scope and quality. Even Dr. Johnson, whom the admired unreservedly, had his prejudices and predilections which always imping upon his work and deteriorate the quality of his work. His judgment is therefore neither balanced nor dependable, but Jane Austen presents her plots and characters in dispassionate spirit. Last, a conclusion. Thus, by the quality of her tone and temperament, she remains the most accomplished artist of her time. She is no doubt the fine flower of the expiring 18th century, absolutely English in her instinct and standpoint, and her scenery Greek in her array, with her delicate ironic and her absolute clearness. She borrows it largely from the society she was inhabiting, and it may always remain a point of speculation as to what she thought privately of these matters.